Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. I just want to warn you guys right now that if you hear some things going on in the background, it is a little stray kitten and he is a little rascal, so yeah, you'll probably hear him at some point. But let's get into the video. Today's case that I'm going to be looking into is the Lululemon murder. It was in this athletic store and it was back in 2011, and a manager walked into the store one morning and came across this horrific scene. Two of their employees had been attacked the night before and one of them had unfortunately passed away. This case was suggested by IVM and I found it super interesting. Bit of a twist in it that you don't really anticipate, I guess, but yeah, it was a good one to choose, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have, and if you have any more, of course, please do let me know. So basically this store specialises in athletic wear, if none of you have heard of it, and to be honest I hadn't either. It is apparently very, very expensive, where you will pay a lot of money for some yoga pants, which I don't know why people do that, but they do. It's their choice and that is what they want to do, and so people buy from this store, I guess. This store in question was located in Washington DC in Bethesda, Maryland, and the employees of the store are not called employees, they're called educators. I don't know why, but they just are. And specifically the two that were involved, the two educators involved in this case, were two women named Jana Murray and Brittany Norwood. So let me take you to the 12th of March in 2011 when this 911 call was made.
911, what is the emergency? Two people in the back of my store. One person's being dead and the other person is breathing. The door was open this morning. I think one of my managers came in to open it. Someone tied her up. I need an ambulance right away.
As I said before, the manager had come across two employees. Jana and Brittany were found in the back of the store that morning. As she opened the doors, this manager saw blood and a mess. Like, you know, the store was a bit of a mess, like a fight had ensued. And then she found these two employees in the back of the store. It looks like they had been assaulted, they had been tied up, and one of them had already passed away. Jana Murray was the one that had passed away. She was found lying in a pool of her own blood. And they found Brittany tied up with zip ties in the nearby bathroom. So luckily, Brittany survived this brutal attack, and the attack was brutal, but we will get into that a bit later on. The police attended the scene, and straight away they were trying to get on to what on earth had happened. You have this trail of blood, there were fingerprints, there was size 14 males' shoes, like footprints in blood, and bloody fingerprints, and they were leading to the emergency exit at the back of the store. There was also a sign that maybe somebody had tried to escape and was dragged back. So when they checked around to see what was missing, they found that there was a whole load of money had gone from the cash registers and the safes. And so straight away you're thinking, robbery gone wrong. You know, they've come in to rob the joint and then ended up with somebody losing their life. And basically when the 28-year-old sole survivor could actually tell them what had happened, they had seemingly hit the nail on the head. Let me take you back to the 11th when the incident happened. This is what Brittany said happened. So she and her colleague Jana, who was 30 years old, so 2 years older than Brittany, were closing up shop that night. They closed up at about 9 p.m, I believe, and then at around 10 p.m, Brittany messaged Jana because she had left her Metro card in the store. She realised this, and so she messaged us to see whether she could go back to the store to go and collect it. So Jana did. She came back because she had the keys. She opened the store. They went in together, and this was just after 10, but they couldn't find it apparently, and so Jana had decided that because she had a car, she would loan Brittany her Metro card, and that is what their plan was. So they were about to shut up shop again when two men in ski masks entered the shop. Brittany said that Jana was hit by one of the men and then dragged to the back of the store with her hair. There were chunks of her hair found various places throughout the shop, so that seemed to tie in. Like, if she's being dragged by it, I think pieces will fall off. Jana was fighting her attacker, and then Brittany was taken to the bathroom by the other man. He tied her wrists and her ankles with zip ties, and then he cut a hole in her pants and he sexually assaulted her too. After they brutally attacked the two women, they grabbed as much money as they could and they just ran straight out of there. Jana Murray passed away at the scene, and Brittany was left there, tied up, unconscious until somebody found her. The attack, as I said, was brutal. Jana had a total of 331 wounds throughout her entire body, and 107 of those were defensive. It made it appear like, and they would later find out that that was the case, that Jana was alive for most of the attack, pretty much up until the very end when a fatal blow was given and she was stabbed in the back of the head. There was about 25 wounds just on her face alone, and she had numerous bruises and cuts. She was bleeding from lots of places, and she also suffered bleeding on the brain. So close to her body they found this red toolbox, and inside that were the tools that were used to attack Jana. Like, there was a wrench, a knife, a hammer, there was this big iron bar, and they were all used like separately to attack Jana. Brittany, on the other hand, was nowhere near as bad. The attack that she suffered was like, not, I don't want to downplay it, but compared to Jana's, you know, it wasn't comparable really. She was traumatized, granted, and she had been attacked, but compared to Jana, her injuries were so minor. And she also had Jana's blood on her, which was weird, but she later explained as to why that happened. And it was weird mainly because she was in the bathroom, so how did she get her blood on her? But again, she explained that away. So, of course, the police began their investigation. They began looking into the ski mask sales around the area. They put up this reward. This reward was put up for $150,000 that led to any information to these two ski masked guys. Of course, they looked into CCTV. There was no actual CCTV in the store, which I don't know why, but there wasn't. A lot of stores have CCTV, and it was like a clothing store as well, so I don't know why, but they didn't. And the next store that was close by to it was an Apple store. They had CCTV outside, which caught two men walking past around the time of these, like around the time after the murder and the attack. What would later come out was that inside the store, Apple employees had a CCTV too. And you can see on it the Apple employees hearing noises, and then they go over to the edge of the store, which is where it joins with Lululemon, and it actually came out that they heard the full thing. So they're hearing screams, dragging, all sorts of sounds that are really not good. You can literally see them going over to the wall, and when they go over to the wall, they claim that they heard, "Please help me, oh God, please help me." And it was two women, and they didn't call the police. They came under a lot of scrutiny for that, and rightly so. I don't understand why you would hear all of that and not call the police. Like, I get it, you might be scared and think, I don't know, that someone's getting attacked over there. You can't misrepresent that. You just can't. You can hear them screaming and shouting and banging, and someone saying, "Please help me," and they did nothing. Making a phone call could have saved someone's life, and they just didn't do it. I mean, I bet, you know, they're kicking themselves after. They probably didn't actually think that something bad was happening, but I mean, surely they should have, right? So anyway, the CCTV outside caught these two guys, and they managed to track those down, and it just turns out that they were buzz boys leaving the end of their shift, so they had nothing to do with the case. They also had another lead, which was this homeless man called Keith Locke. He was known for being aggressive, and when they finally did track him down, he was in hospital, and he had all this blood on him. But apparently he had gotten into this fight. It wasn't Jana's blood at all, and then he was ruled out as a suspect too. So although they had a couple of leads, they didn't really go anywhere. Then they came across Jana's car. They found it 3 blocks away, and of course they took it in and they forensically tested it. When they did, it threw up some very, very strange things. They found inside Jana's blood and Brittany's blood. But why on earth was there blood inside of this car? Because there had been a robbery. All the attack had gone down in the store, and yet there's blood in the car. They literally found Brittany tied up in the bathroom. How did blood end up in the car? You may be wondering that, and so was the police. So Brittany suddenly has this memory that she didn't have before. She apparently forgot it due to shock, which, you know, is a thing. I'm not saying that it isn't, it does happen. Pretty convenient in Brittany's case. And you'll find out why. But yeah, she says that night, Jana had parked her car like directly outside of the store to obviously get the Metro card and unlock it all and whatever. It wasn't supposed to be parked directly outside of that car and of the store, sorry. And so when these two men came in with the ski masks, they saw this car, like, thought that it might get towed away and it might attract unwanted attention. And so they made Brittany get the keys, get into the car alone, mind, you know, they didn't go with her. She got in the car alone, she drove it 3 blocks away, and then they told her that she had better come back, otherwise they would kill her.
Prior to him sexually assaulting me and zip tying me, they made me move her car.
Okay.
I know where her car is. And they seemed to know where it was, where she was parked.
Okay.
Now, personally, you're going unescorted. I would have just gone. Apparently, at one point she saw the police but was too scared to tell them. And so she parks up this car and then just simply walks back to her attackers. Of course, after that, they sexually assaulted her and then they zip-tied her. That is what she claimed, although obviously it was different to the first story she gave. Don't get me wrong, being terrified, I get it, but literally she had nobody there and she was in a car, she could have driven off. And then she also went on to explain how she had ended up with Jana's blood all over her. So she goes on to say that she was pushed on top of Jana by one of the men and basically saying that this could happen to you kind of thing, this is your fault, something along those lines. And that is how she got blood all over her. Which, could have happened, but wasn't the case. And as you can see already, Brittany's story was gaining some holes. Of course, with all of these cases, people, the Jana's body was going to get examined. And Brittany was attacked, and so she was also examined. And when that happened, they found out that neither of them had been sexually assaulted at all. Which, obviously, was a massive integral part of her story. Not only that, the size 14 male shoes, the bloody footprints that were found in the store. Now, Lululemon didn't actually sell shoes, so, it looks like they came from the attacker. However, they did have a pair of shoes that customers could try on whilst they were trying on the new outfit. I don't know why, but they did. And when they were examining the scene, they found only 2 sets of footprints. They found Brittany's footprints and they found these size 14 shoes. The thing was, though, they found blood inside of these shoes. And they also found blood inside of Brittany's shoes. And when they compared the imprint and the layout of the blood, it was made by the same person. So Brittany had basically gotten blood on her socks at some point. She had put on these size 14 shoes and left the blood imprint inside of the shoe, walked around with it for a while to make it look like some other man was there, put her own shoe back on, and then left the same blood imprint in that too. So, as you can tell, what Brittany was saying was very far from the truth. So, the bloody sock proved that the same person was wearing the same shoe, i.e. Brittany. A man who's got size 14 shoes is not going to put on Brittany's trainers, are they? Also, which was pretty convenient, these robbers didn't bring anything with them. So, if their intent was just to rob somebody, then you'd think they'd bring a weapon to threaten with so that they could rob the till or whatever. They didn't bring anything like that, they used the tools that were in the shop. Literally every single one of those tools was used individually on Jana, and the killers didn't bring them with them. They didn't bring any weapon whatsoever. They also analysed the zip ties that Brittany had been tied up with, and on the ones around her wrist, it had teeth marks. So basically, she had done it herself. She had literally tied it up and pulled it tight with her own teeth. So the police re-interviewed Brittany again, and they basically call her out on it. They tell her that the wounds that she suffered were all self-inflicted. and that she'd done it all herself, that the zip ties she'd done herself and the position she put herself in, they basically knew and told her that nobody would be believing this story.
You gotta tell us what really happened.
I'm telling you.
Okay, because I know what really happened.
I told you what really happened.
No, what you've done is you've concocted an incredible story that doesn't make any doggone sense.
No.
With the injuries that you have, they're self-inflicted. Yeah, they're self-inflicted. You did this to yourself. It's incredible that you want me or anyone to believe that you're lying like this overnight, haven't moved, okay? That's posed. Nobody in the world is going to believe this story. No one.
She just said that she wanted to go home, basically. She weren't admitting anything, and that was when her brother came in.
Listen, I don't know if I can let you go. You tell me right now. Did you do it?
Chrissy, I just want to go for
Brittany,
it.
I'm not gonna let you go. But you need to tell me so I know how to talk to these guys. Tell me right now. You did.
I just don't want to talk about it here.
Brittany was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. And this case really did shock Maryland, and rightly so. They thought that this was a robbery gone wrong, and it turned out that Brittany had killed her co-worker in a vicious and brutal attack and then lied about it all. And it was normally quite a quiet town, so they really, I don't know, it threw them for six. They looked into Brittany's history and they found that she was from a loving family. They both were. Nothing like this had ever happened before, but she had been accused of stealing previously. But that was pretty much it. She was a fan of sports, and it just seems like this came from nowhere. A few days before the 11th, before this horrific attack happened, it seems like the management of the store had actually called everybody to come in, and basically somebody was stealing and they were trying to find out who was doing it. Now, one day when Jana was doing a check, like a bag check, she checked Brittany's bag and she found a pair of yoga pants inside, yoga leggings, whatever they were, that still had the tags on and looked like brand new. And so obviously with somebody that is stealing, she asked her where she'd got them from. So obviously Brittany claimed that she hadn't stolen them, that she'd actually bought them from somebody in the shop, and that she'd just not pulled off the tags, and that she could ask this person that she bought them off her and prove it, which Jana did, and she hadn't bought them off her, so basically she had stolen them. As a result of that, she was going to report her to management. She'd found out who the thief was, and she was going to let her manager know. Seems like Brittany was aware that Jana was going to tell, and so she lured her back to the store that night on the 11th. It seems like that she was going to try and convince her not to rat her out, essentially, but it would be found out that she had already reported her as being the thief that very night. Now, we don't know exactly what happened in the store as a result of that. Maybe she just snapped because she was trying to convince her not to do it, and then she found out that she'd already done it, and so she just flipped a switch and saw red. And that is when she began to attack her. She used the different tools one by one on Jana, and it was said the attack took at least 10 to 20 minutes, and she was alive the entire time up until that fatal knife wound at the very end of the attack, which did sever her spinal cord, and that is what eventually killed her. So that is horrific. She suffered 330 odd blows and injuries, and she was alive for all of it. It's just awful. Jana had died, and that was when Brittany... This is where the car comes in, because she got in the car, she drove like 3 blocks away, and she sat in it for 90 minutes wondering what she should do next. And this is when she concocted her plan. She goes back to the store. That is how the blood ended up in there from them both. She goes back to the store. She attacks herself, makes it look like they've both been sexually assaulted by cutting the holes in the pants, and then proceeds to tie herself up. And that was that. Now, when you look into Lululemon, there's a lot of controversy around it, and people have likened it to cult-like. I'm not going to get too much into it, But a lot of people that used to work there have said that it's no wonder that one of the employees finally snapped. If you want to look more into that, please do. There's a lot of information on the internet that you can read into, and one ex-employee even wrote this whole massive thing about it. But yeah, she was basically saying that it was just weird and cult-like. With that in mind, it's thought that Brittany knew of the toxic culture around Lululemon and how they would deal with her stealing, and she felt like her only way to resolve that was to stop Jaina. Now, of course, she did try and stop her from doing it, but then when she found out that she'd already done it, she ended up brutally attacking her. She just snapped. Brittany was convicted of first-degree murder, and she was sent to prison for life without the possibility of parole. In 2015, Brittany asked for a retrial, which was denied. So yeah, this case is real. Literally, a 30-year-old woman got bludgeoned to death over a stolen pair of yoga pants. And it is insane. And if somebody told you that passing by the street, you probably wouldn't think that it was real. But it happened, and it was real. And it's just insane. It's so tragic what happened to Jaina. She lost her life as a result of stealing. It's just awful. And Brittany just completely snapped one day. Obviously, my heart goes out to both families. You know, they would have never expected Brittany to do something like that. And Jaina's family lost their loved one. They both did, essentially. It's just so tragic for everyone. And just such a sad loss of life. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you are new and would like to join the pack. To all my regulars, I appreciate you. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of the Lululemon murders. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye. I just thought I would show you the culprit. Look, you were being noisy while I'm recording, aren't you? Yeah. This little one as well. You're being very noisy, aren't you?